Hello and welcome to Dialogue. China has issued a notice to further optimize departure tax refund policies, which will enhance shopping experience for overseas tourists and expand inbound consumption. The new policy follows moves last year to ease visa restrictions to attract more foreign visitors and comes as authorities are stepping up efforts to boost consumption against a background of hefty U.S. tariffs on Chinese exports. So, how big an impact will such a move have on domestic consumption? And what can be done further to attract more overseas travelers? And as the nation enjoys its week-long Labor Day holiday, how resilient the Chinese economy will be? Join us for our discussion today. From Beijing, I'm Xu Qinduo. Joining me today are Hong Hao, economist based in Hong Kong, Liang, Kremer Chair Professor of Economics at Willamette University, and Kiran Patel, Senior Director at the China-Britain Business Council. Liang, I will start with you, mostly because of the introduction of a series of visa-free policies. The number of tourists, overseas tourists coming to China reached about 27 million last year. That represents a year-on-year increase of 96%. And if you look at the number of the first quarter of this year, the number of inbound foreign tourists exceeded 9.2 million, a year-on-year increase of over 40%. So how do you see this booming performance probably of the domestic arrivals from overseas?
So I think this phenomenon, as you mentioned, it's really aided by a lot of these visa-free policies. China right now has, 25 bilateral visa-free policies with 25 countries. 38 countries have the unilateral China granted the visa-free policies, and then there are 54 countries that enjoy the transit visa-free policies with China. So I think this is a lot of, very favorable policies to streamline the travel experiences and really reduce the kinds of burden, right, to apply visa to be able to come to China. So we see a lot of tourists from Southeast Asia countries, also from East Asia countries. And so these are really tourists that like to spend in China. And so we're seeing, really these tourists spending is also rising quite rapidly. Now, I would also point out that as now China is trying to boost domestic consumption, I think all these foreign tourists and their consumption spending would be a really helpful addition to that domestic consumption demand. Not to mention, I think, with all this demand, it would also prompt domestic local businesses to really innovate, right, and also supply high quality products, including goods, but also services. So I think this is a good, dual circulation in terms of the services in the service sector. And we also know that China's tourism market is vast and it's growing, and it still has a lot of potential. And so I think all of these just shows that, when it comes to boosting domestic consumption, boosting foreign tourism, and boosting tourism consumption, I think all of these will present great market opportunity going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hong Hao, we know that in late April, China issued a notice to further optimize departure tax refund policies. Among the most notable updates are lowering the minimum purchase threshold required for tax refund eligibility, expanding refund channels to include mobile payment systems such as Alipay, WeChat Pay, rolling out real-time tax refund services at the designated stores and the major airports. So what is the purpose of such an upgrade, which seems to be the continuation of this visa-free practice?
Yeah, well, I think, if you look at the retail sales structure, right? So retail sales that is made by the overseas travelers as a percent of GDP for China as a country is actually relatively low, right? So comparing to the other country where, they get 1 to 3, up to 3% retail sales from overseas travelers, well, in China it's well less than 1%, right? So I think there's quite a bit of room for improvement there. And also China is, as everybody knows, it's a well-known tour destination, right? So there's so many magnificent places to visit, many worthwhile places to travel, and also lots of indigenous things to buy as souvenir. So I think for years and years, China has been a favorite destination for foreign travelers. So I think this is the high time to open up, right? So on one hand, we can improve our retail sales register from the foreign travelers, but then at the same time, I think it's a better chance, better opportunity for people to get to know China in a closer look.
Well, Kiran, how do you look at the latest moves from the Chinese side?
Well, firstly, I think it's great to see foreign tourism and inbound consumption is demonstrating a positive trend again. I mean, China has always had a positive perception with curious international tourists due to being culturally very asset rich. And it's good to see that, greater connectivity has rebuilt now post-pandemic. There are more enhanced services for travelers, digital payment enablement and optimization, in addition to the visa-free policies that we've highlighted today, are also driving this transition. I think also with my own eyes, I've been able to see visibly more foreign tourists here, not just from neighboring markets and the short-haul markets, but also from further afield, from the Europe and from other continents, which is great. Traditionally, China has never been sort of viewed like a London or New York or Paris as being a traditional shopping destination for its tourists. However, in light of the current situation and the impact that might have, for example, on the prices of Chinese electronic products, let's say, in certain markets around the world, we could find that this leads to a growing trend in more international travelers actually coming here and putting certain items on their shopping list, shall we say, with regards to making purchases. And VAT-free regimes as well will also perhaps have a positive impact in terms of stimulating the psyche of the consumer to make that spend. I'm from the UK, and previously we used to have a VAT exemption policy for tourists, and that was very much utilized by Chinese tourists visiting the UK. As of 2021, that ceased. I think what's important right now for China, particularly as it pivots and positions itself towards international travelers, is that A, it has this mechanism in place, B, that it is simple and easy to use, and C, is both bilingual and quick in terms of the ability to make the refund transaction back to the end user.
Well, Liang, of course, as Hong Hao mentioned, if you compare the Chinese situation, inbound consumption in 2024, for example, by overseas tourists, contributed to about like 0.5% to China's GDP, while other major economies, the number would be like 1% or 3% of GDP. So there's a big potential for the Chinese side to explore this potential. At the same time, as Mr. Kiran mentioned, what are the items, like if you want to make China or a particular city as a shopping destination, what more need to be done, and what are the probably products or services here in China that seem to be more attractive to international travelers?
When it comes to what foreigners would like to buy, I think first of all, when it comes to goods, there are definitely the China time-honored brands that some of the foreigners would like to come to China and purchase. There are also really cultural heritage products, the products that are very unique in China and also has certain geographical identification products that you can only purchase those in China, right? So I know that my friends, when they travel to China, they like to buy silk, all kinds of scarves. They like to buy teas, really delicious teas that you don't necessarily find the kinds of varieties in the, in the United States, for example. So I think there are a lot of these products that are very unique to China in terms of the history, in terms of the culture, in terms of geographic. So I think those are really important products. But in addition to that, we know that with the trade war, that there's a lot of barriers for foreigners to purchase certain Chinese-made products like Huawei iPhones or Huawei phones or drones and things like that. That I think they're high-tech products that the Chinese products are with good quality, very competitive price. That I think would also attract a lot of foreign buyers. we should not also forget the services. I think services is a very important part for the travel experiences, especially for foreign tourists. They like to do city walks. They like to see very unique cultural shows. And again, last year I brought some friends back to China. They really like the boat ride in the Pearl River, for example, in Guangzhou City, and they really enjoy and find it very impressive to watch some of the very large live shows in Xi'an city. So I think those are really important when we think about how to encourage foreign consumptions, is to produce products that are unique to China and the service experiences that are also very exciting and unique to the foreign tourists. So I think, yes, the market is still vast and has a lot of potential.
Well, speak of that, that's beyond this physical, products. Something even more probably bring people together. The experience, against a large background, what people would say a new Cold War. It is even more important probably for people to have a real sense of what China is like. For example, this internet celebrity. Speed, for example, he was in China for some time, and he caused a big stir internationally. I mean, that's a good example of producing this influence of bringing people together to see to better understanding of each other, or reducing this misperception, misconception, or misunderstanding. I mean, that's a totally positive thing. Kiran, share with us more about your understanding.
Sure. Well, I think just to reinforce, connections are very much built through culture, and this is a prime example of this mantra in action. And I think while Speed is perhaps as a character a bit too intense and extreme for me, somewhat as a bit of an uncool middle-aged man, he's definitely been one of the more positive stories, we could say, in the recent China-US bilateral relationship. And it's great to see that his experience in China has served to build bridges and also enhance curiosity amongst his young and vast following across international social media. It's also been great to see netizens in China and the Chinese public also embracing him as he's built content and broadcast it to the world. KOLs such as Speed make China accessible in a unique way to audiences that wouldn't, normally have that level of access and, that vivid on-the-ground insight into people's lives, into cities and places. I myself have taken very recently business and civic leaders around China, not as a KOL, but as a sort of business organization representative. And, they are amazed by the vibrancy that they are seeing throughout industry and society. And it gives, a very strong impression for them to take back to their communities, to their business constituencies and their regional economies as to how they can also use their experience of seeing China close up and personal to drive outcomes in economic and civic engagement. You can't beat experiencing a country like China up close and personal. I've had the privilege of being here for over 20 years and seeing at first hand, first as a tourist coming, and then as a professional that's developed his career here over a period of time, this unique change and transition and cultural impact as well. I think if you look at things, other factors such as Nerja, for example, and how the creative industries can also play a very important role, bringing Chinese culture and Chinese creativity and enabling that to open the minds of young people across the world. This also, I think, in terms of soft power, has a strong role to play in terms of driving what will be future traffic in terms of tourism and engagement with this country. And then just finally, the international expansion of Chinese brands. We've referred already to Chinese tech and Chinese EVs as well, I think, being another one, and also the Chinese private sector as well. Will also sort of play an important role in terms of boosting perception and the desire for people to make a decision to put their travel budget to come and experience this wonderful and unique country.
Yan Liang, if you look at this, the prediction of this incoming or inbound tourists during this May Day holiday, week-long May Day holiday. So according to the platforms, which received this booking, they are predicting over 50% increase, year-on-year increase, and per capita consumption is expected to increase by 20 to 30% compared with last year. So in the long run, I mean, of course, it's expected there will be increase. It's really about to what degree of the number of tourists arriving in China and the spending in China. But also importantly, it is a signal, of the Chinese efforts to open up this society, maybe as a proper response to the efforts to contain China or to isolate China here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think China's actions and also the words have been always consistent that China embraces multilateralism. China wants to be integrated into the world. China really appreciates and also promote the kinds of cultural exchanges and people-to-people exchanges. And all of these are very important to form sort of the backbone of China's very productive and meaningful engagement with the rest of the world. And I think really, by contrast, when you look at the United States, March, the international travel to the United States has declined by 12%. And what is interesting is the tourism is actually a really big sector for the United States. It produces $1.8 trillion annual output, and it also creates 15 million jobs, right? But because of the U.S.'s very anti-globalism kind of approach by Donald Trump's administration, I think that really undercut the U.S.'s foreign engagements. And I think the decline in the tourism, inbound tourism, is a clear example of that. And what is very, I think, ironic is that, Donald Trump talked about bringing back manufacturing jobs, but the manufacturing sector employs only about 12 million workers. When you compare that to, tourism sector, it's actually the latter is more important. So in a sense, they are really missing the big picture here. So I think China's approach is clear, it's consistent, and I think it's also favorable in the sense that not only this help to contribute to the so-called export of services, because tourism is one form of export, right? It's an export of services. And that is actually a $18 trillion trade in services last year globally. And it's also growing at 3 times the pace of trade in goods. So this is really a fast-growing sector. It has huge market potential. So I think, China will continue to promote the kinds of, pro-globalization policies, including, welcoming foreign businesses and also tourists into the country. And so with these visa policies, with the tax refund policies, and by the way, they not only reduce the amount that can be eligible to the refund, they also increase the cap of this refund, right, to 20,000 yuan now. And so I think all of these are favorable changes that would help to continue to encourage more, foreign tourism. Not to mention, as we just earlier talked about, all these wonderful service products and goods that I think will continue to drive the tourism industry going forward.
As a part of the efforts to boost domestic consumption, Hong Hao, for example, for this year's May Day holiday, like a week long, if you take a look at the railway network, for example, they are expected to handle approximately 144 million passenger trips during the holiday. So that represents an increase, a year-on-year increase of 4.9%. So can we say, the potential of consumption remains, massive there in a sense?
Yeah, well, I think consumption sector is still underrepresented in the Chinese economy, in the sense that, for the $14,000 GDP per capita we generated every year, we only spend less than 50% of that on consumption, right? So which, compared to the other countries at the similar level of development is just way too low. So I think, that also means there's a huge potential to boost consumption and to grow the economy further. I think historically, China has been investment-driven economy, right? So because, we have plenty of capital, lots of savings, and therefore, it makes it natural to invest heavily in manufacturing production capacities. But I think right now, because of the trade war, and then also because China has reached a sort of a critical juncture that it needs to boost consumption, right? So because the population is aging, birth rate is falling, and therefore there's a need actually to sort of restructure the economy towards a more balanced consumption and manufacturing sector-driven economy. So I think you're right. We have a huge potential here, lots of fields to explore. I think with some efforts and also with some policy support from the government, we should see consumption as a sector increase in importance in the Chinese economy already, right? So in the first quarter of this year, we're seeing consumption numbers beating expectation. That's a really good sign. But but remember that in the first quarter we do have some policy support, right? So for buying electronics, you get a rebate or a discount from the government. So I think once that wear off, we need more sustainable policy to boost consumption, not just for one quarter, but for the years to come.
So what are you talking about, like a long-term, probably policy or practice, Hong Hao? We just passed this private sector promotion law. Of course, that's important. Once you have a robust private sector, for example, investment from the private sector, of course, consumption will also grow. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think normally when income grows, consumption will grow. Right? So even if the propensity to consume stays the same, people will spend more, right? So I think it's very important. And also the private sectors tend to be sort of a labor-intensive servicing sectors. These sectors actually provides more than 2/3 of employment in China. I think well over 2/3. So I think it is important to give them confidence, and also we need to change the savings habit as well. Chinese people save too hard, right? So people, for some reason, are very risk averse. So we need to sort of improve the environment. So for example, we need to improve the social safety net further for people to feel safe to consume, to spend money. We need to give more support on education, child support, and also retirement benefits as well. So I think with those social safety nets in place, then one shouldn't be too surprised to see consumption will be increasing in its importance in the overall economy.
Well, Yan Liang, obviously, the Chinese side are, different sectors actually are making efforts. For example, there's I think the year 2025 was designated as the year of the movies or film year. There's 1 billion subsidy basically to attract the viewers, moviegoers to go back to the cinema, to support the development of the Chinese film industry. Initiatives like this, there are several of them. You can see, yes, there are positive effects, but as Hong Hao mentioned, you need something probably which stands longer, a long-term policy, because we are experiencing it's not only about the trade war, from the U.S., but also it's about the structural transformation of the economic growth from relying on export investment to one driven by consumption and innovation, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think the question is not either or. I think these sectoral kinds of subsidies, especially for example, the trade-in program for home appliances, for electronics, and all of this, I think are helpful to promote the sales of these white goods. And the subsidies to the service industries like the movie theater, the film industry, I think is also helpful because they also create multiplier effects, right? When families go out to watch movies, they would also buy certain cultural products related to the movies. They also dine out, they take the transportation, and so on and so forth. So I think that would help to create a chain kind of increase in consumption. So I think these sectoral subsidies is helpful. But more importantly, I agree. I think for one, we need to see continuous income growth, and that means job creation is important. That's why I think it's very heartened to see the NDRC when they emphasize employment first strategy, because I think Besant, the Treasury Secretary in the United States, has pretty much said that, this trade war is going to knock out 16 million Chinese jobs, and he thinks this is a U.S. win. But I think, China's policymakers definitely realizing the importance to stabilize job growth. And so I think they have taken measures, both in terms of facilitating, job market turnovers, encourage more entrepreneurs, and they are also, creating more public jobs, public works. All of this will help to, in a way, stabilize the employment. And of course, more investment in the service sector, create more service sector jobs. I think that's also important because, again, this is a huge potential. China's service sector employs only about half of the urban workers, whereas in the United States, 70 or 80%. So I think there's potential to boost the service sector jobs to compensate and offset a little bit of those export sectors.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, in the first quarter of this year, we do see strong economic growth, more than 5%. Well, with a year ago of around 5%. But for the second quarter, because of the trade war mostly, people are predicting, obviously, like something lower than 5%, people say 4.5%, etc. But that's not really bad. I mean, given such a large economy, 4.5% economic growth is pretty strong.
So yeah, I agree with you in the sense that in the second quarter things could slow down a bit. Because in the first quarter there's a one-off effect from policy boost, right? So just now I mentioned about the rebate for consumer electronic purchase. And also there's a effect from the tariff in the sense that the importers, the U.S. importers, has been stocking up, right? So they stock up probably 60 to 90 days of inventory in the channel, right? So that gives our export sector a very strong boost as well. I think going into second quarter, because the uncertainties with tariff negotiation, and we are not entirely sure when it can be concluded, and therefore it's harder for people to plan, for production and also for inventory management as well. So I think as such, one should be too surprised to see a small step down in terms of growth in the second quarter. But I think that give a really good backdrop for the government to come up with policy support. So I think once the data are starting to weaken, then I would imagine that the policy would be coming in from the central government. And also, just now we mentioned that we're trying to restructure the economy to make it more consumer-driven, consumption-based. And so, once we, for example, in the tier 1 cities, once we increase the service sectors, and service sectors are quite labor-intensive, and they tend to employ a lot more people than manufacturing sectors. And therefore, naturally, you will see employment being supported as well. I think China's relationship, according to many of the surveys that I've seen, and also I did surveys myself, I'm seeing the trading relationship with many other countries other than the US is actually going well, especially with the European importers. They're actually importing more from China, and also the European countries has been the major destination for Chinese exports. So one should be too surprised to see some compensation from the European countries and also from the Asian countries for Chinese export growth in the second quarter. And also, over the years, the importance of US as a trading partner has actually been decreased. It's no longer the biggest trading partner with China. It's only taking 13% of Chinese exports, makes up about maybe less than 1% of Chinese employment. So I think as a result, I would be surprised to see a huge hit on our employment. I think Scott Bessent may have miscalculated his numbers.
With that, we are coming to the end of today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also watch us on the CGTN app or on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.